Hi everyone, my name is Brianna and welcome to my channel. Today I will be sharing what I can see as someone with a visual impairment. I want to make it clear that in no way am I trying to represent the experience of everyone with a visual impairment. It varies from person to person. In my case, I have blind spots in the center of my vision in both eyes, which is why I'm visually impaired. And if you'd like to learn more about my story and my experience, please check out my previous video. I'll link it down below. To explain it to someone with perfect vision or average vision, if a piece of paper were to represent your entire field of vision, everything you could see, even up to the exterior sides, I'm missing a piece in the center. And it becomes very difficult when I'm trying to focus on details or read text. Anything that requires my eyes to work together and look at one single point is when I face the most challenge. For example, when you're trying to read a book and your eyes work together to look at a single word at a time in a sentence, my eyes do that, but I have a blind spot that covers each word. So I really rely on my peripheral vision to see. It may be hard to understand for someone that doesn't have a visual impairment, but pretty much when I'm looking at someone's face, if I concentrate on one spot too long, I can't see that part of their face. So sometimes I move my eyes around slightly off the center of their face, and that helps me because I am able to use my peripheral vision to get a better image. At first sight, you can tell I'm visually impaired. It is something that only few people can actually see, such as specialists and doctors that look into my eyes. And this creates a problem sometimes because I make sure to tell people around me that I do have a visual impairment and to take that into consideration when I'm looking at them or when they wave from far away and I don't wave back. It's not me trying to be rude, it's just I really can't see you. Since it's something you can't see about me, there are times when people don't entirely believe me, especially since I'm able to do everything that a fully sighted person would be able to do. But the reason I can do everything on my own independently is because I really rely on technology and assistive programs. I thought it would be best to start with the stereotypes about people with low vision and to explain how they are wrong. So first up, just because I'm visually impaired doesn't mean I will be using a cane. Although a cane can be a very useful tool for someone with greater vision loss, I am able to navigate the world on my own using a lot of environmental cues. So when it comes to walking on the street, I can do that on my own. I honestly think I'm a better walker than someone with full sight because I'm more observant to things. And walking is a very consistent movement. You see people walking and walking and walking. They just seem like, and they just appear to be getting closer. Although I may not be able to see every detail of their face, I can distinguish people because it's just a larger body to look at. It would be a very different case if I was trying to track a mouse. They're very small, they run really fast, so that would be much more difficult. Although when it is raining or it's dark, especially at night, if I'm trying to walk on the sidewalk, my depth perception is affected. For instance, when there are puddles on the floor, I can't exactly tell how deep they are. So a lot of times I walk into puddles thinking they're very shallow and then my shoes are soaking wet. But when it comes to nighttime, I usually am walking with another person. The stereotype about visually impaired people and cell phones. I have a smartphone and I'm able to use touchscreen. It is more difficult if you don't program specific features on the phone, but I take advantage of all the accessibility features and I'm able to make text as big as I want and use text-to-speech assistance. So many times I just make my phone read the text I need to know. There are certain parts of the phone where it is more difficult. For instance, when my apps are in folders, sometimes most times I can't see the title of that folder because it is so small. But with practice, I just became used to where each app is. So there's no real need to read each folder. Sports is the one that most people are surprised by. anyone with vision loss, even people without sight, are able to play sports. There are adjustments that you can do to sports to make it accessible to everyone. I would say basketball and soccer are the easier sports to play. Well, not easy, but easier for people with visual impairments. For instance, when it comes to basketball, the hoop never moves, the court is constant, and you're the only thing moving, and the ball is a different color from the surroundings, so it's easier to track. And it's pretty much just calculating how much force you need to put into a shot to make sure it goes into the hoop. When it comes to soccer, it's not that difficult to follow the ball, especially if it's near you, because it does have a pattern, and usually the ground is green, so it's not that hard to chase. But when it is at a far enough distance, and since so many of the players are moving, it is hard to tell where it's moving. Especially when the ball is rolling really fast, you have to look where everyone else is looking, and hopefully you're running to the right place. Clumsiness. Even though I trip, I think that might just be a flaw of mine. Just because I have a visual impairment doesn't mean I'm going to be clumsy. There are so many ways to be aware of your surroundings, even without sight. There are other cues, such as hearing or echolocation for certain individuals. I'm able to see furniture and large objects relatively well, but I do find myself running into certain things. But I think that's just a problem of my own, because I'm always walking around too fast and don't take my time. Oh, this one is one I really like to talk about. How certain people think that just because I'm visually impaired, I am not going to enjoy visual aesthetics as much as someone else would. And that's totally a lie. If anything, as someone with an unpredictable condition, I just learned to appreciate my surroundings and everything I see every day. Even though certain colors aren't as vibrant as they used to be, I still appreciate painting and colors and makeup and any type of art. I believe oftentimes people forget that not everyone was born with a visual impairment. In fact, many people like me, they go through their entire life unaware of an underlying condition, and then one day they simply become visually impaired. So sometimes I find myself correcting people that assume that I haven't experienced life with relatively average sight, because I have. For 14 years I lived as any other person. I just got new lenses every few years if I needed to, but everything seemed fine. I believe with time that my fade memories do change as you get older, so we'll check back in a few years, I guess. The big one, independence. Just because it's classified as a disability doesn't mean a person is not independent. I actually believe that people with disabilities sometimes have to mature much faster than the average person, and that pushes us to learn and be independent on our own much sooner in life. For instance, I never let my disability limit my life, so when I got into university, I decided to live on campus. And anytime you're living away from home, it does require a lot of independence, and I feel like as someone with a visual impairment, I have to be more responsible. TV and film. I love TV. I have always loved film and TV. I don't think that's ever going to change. Even though it is more difficult now to see characters, and especially when they are speaking another language and there are certain translations that I miss, I'm able to appreciate movies and TV just as much as the next person. Sometimes it just requires me to hear and listen rather than see the film. You can definitely appreciate film simply by listening to it. It is a story after all. If you'd like to hear more about it, please like and subscribe and click the notification bell for my next video. And the biggest stereotype of all time is that all visually impaired people are the same. No, we're not. We could never be the same. No two people in the world could ever be the same. They could have the exact same diagnosis. It will never be the same. I see the word disability in terms of medicine. It means I am not able to do something. And it's true. I am not able to see some things. Disease, health problems do not discriminate. No matter what race, religion, or nationality you are, you could be affected. What I mean is that visually impaired individuals come in an array of packages. I also wanted to cover how sometimes, even though you see someone with a visual impairment, it looks like they have just as much sight as you do. And the reason is, after so many years, I have adapted and learned certain tricks that make my life easier. For instance, when I go to a restaurant or let's say a cafe, and if it's a cafe I do go to often, I have already seen the menus online several times that I already know what type of drinks they offer. Pretty much when I'm in line and I'm staring at the menu up there above the cashier's head, I'm not actually looking at it. It is more of like a natural reflex because everyone else is looking and my body just thinks I should look up there too. But there's no reason for me to look up there because I can't see the words. Many times in line you see people on their phones. I could be one of those people and I'm looking up the menu so I can see it better. When studying, computers nowadays are so advanced and they come with so many accessibility features, some more than others. Pretty much they all have features that allow people to zoom in to a certain extent or to have text read to them, or my favorite one is dictation. So pretty much if you're trying to create a document, instead of typing it, you turn on dictation and you just say what you want to write and the computer registers it. That's so helpful. And it's situations like this that make it look like I have full sight at time to time, but in reality I don't. And another reason I may seem totally independent at times is because I am not afraid to ask for help. If I need assistance, if I'm at the store and I need some sort of assistance, whether it is trying to read a label or just trying to do anything, I am not going to hesitate to get the proper help. Like I mentioned in my previous video about my life story as a visually impaired person, I am so happy to live in the 21st century and technology is my best friend. I am not as obsessive over it, it's just it makes my life a lot easier. Easy might not be the right word, but technology makes life easier for me. It reduces the degree of the challenge I face. I just want to make it clear that just because it makes it easier, it doesn't mean I'm able to do it the same as someone with full sight. I don't ever want to minimize the challenges I face or that other people face with visual impairments. In fact, I just want to make people aware of ways we can adjust and do things differently and accomplish just as much as anyone else. Like I said before or in previous videos, my visual impairment is the result of the damage to the center of my vision. From distances, even if it's just like 5 feet, I can't really appreciate detail as much. If I'm close to a person, I can tell that there is a pattern on a shirt, but I can't really tell what pattern it is or if it's like specific shapes or anything. Unless it's really close, like right here when I look down at my shirt, I can tell what type of pattern it is. Something else I wanted to cover is how I do certain things differently. Certain things that someone with a visual impairment is not entirely expected to do. So pretty much when it comes to sewing, I learned to sew before I was 14. I was able to see much better, so I was able to sew in practice. I took a class, a costume design class in middle school, and I had so much fun with it. And I always felt like it would be something I enjoyed later on, but it does become more difficult. For instance, putting the thread through the needle is just so much work and it really exhausts and strains my eyes. So I simply asked my sister or someone else that's nearby to put it through. Handheld sewing, it is a very visual thing. It does require a lot of eyesight. And if I have 2 pieces of cloth lined up and there are pins holding it together, pretty much I can sew by just simply feeling where my stitches are going. But it's definitely something I can do. It just requires some assistance sometimes. Another thing I do differently is go sightseeing. For instance, whenever I go on road trips, and it's pretty much most road trips in my family are to national parks or just natural sites. For instance, when I went to Grand Canyon, a lot of people do look down to see the stream, and that's something very hard for me because it's so many feet away from me, away from my eyes. Makes it very difficult. I would say what I remember, see, I do have an image in my head, but it's not as strong as the other elements of my experience. It smelled very nice, very very naturey, natural. You could hear the wind and water swooshing and people talking and laughing. And I feel like those parts of an experience are things I keep more than the actual visual element of that moment. I think it just makes the whole experience a lot more meaningful if you take into account everything aside from the sightseeing. It is called sightseeing, but there's more to it. And something else I wanted to cover was cooking. I do love to cook, even though my family says I am not the best baker or the best cook because sometimes things burn. But the thing about cooking that I feel is most affected by my visual impairment is when it comes to chopping vegetables or anything I need to cut up. At first it was extremely difficult, and for instance, when I was chopping vegetables, every piece of carrot I cut or cucumber was so large because I was so scared of cutting my fingers. But with time and practice, I have been able to speed it up now. But when it's not entirely seen for me anymore. It's not like I stare at the vegetable and see every slice and make sure it's perfect. It's hard to explain, but pretty much my body is able to tell now that as my hands get closer, I need to slow down. Being visually impaired does not stop me. Definitely doesn't. It is all about having a positive attitude. It definitely is easier to say than actually live it, but if you become more positive, you just learn to enjoy life a lot more. Anyway, thank you for sticking around. I just wanted to make this video because I thought it was important to correct certain stereotypes or certain misbeliefs. And even though I'm a single person with a visual impairment and I don't represent anyone else from the visually impaired community, I can share my personal experience and just give insight into what it really is like to live with a visual impairment. Anyways, if you'd like to hear more about it, please like and subscribe and click the notification bell for my next video. And remember, if you want to live your best life, always keep it real. Thanks. Bye.